behalf of the Meyerhoff Center for Jewish Studies and the Gildenhorn Institute of Israel Studies, I welcome you all, faculty, staff, family, guests, and most of all, the class of 2014. To our Jewish Studies Commencement. My name is Charles Manikin, and I am currently the director of the Meyerhoff Center for Jewish Studies, and I welcome you all. 40 years ago, the first chair of Jewish Studies was endowed at the University of Maryland, and other chairs, and the Meyerhoff Center of Jewish Studies, and then the Gildenhorn Institute of Israel Studies followed. We are celebrating this year 40 years of Jewish Studies at the University of Maryland. This doesn't mean that our graduates were journeying in the wilderness until now, but at least we believe that we have brought them to the promised land. Yesterday, President Lowe, and I imagine that some of you went to the main ceremony. Anyway, I was there. That's a tough act to follow, let me tell you. But our president promised that the university commencement would not take too long a time. And following the example of our president, I'm promising the same. Before I call upon our colleague, Professor Eric Zakim, to deliver his faculty remarks, I would like to ask the entire Jewish Studies and Israel Studies faculty and staff to stand and to be recognized. It is now my pleasure to call upon Professor Zakim, who is an associate professor of Hebrew literature and Israel cultural studies, to speak. Professor Zakim's research and teaching focus primarily on modern Hebrew literature and Israeli culture. Professor Zakim.
First of all, greetings to everyone, colleagues, students, parents. Mazal Tov. We won't get into the Hebraiest versus Yiddishist thing, but a Mazal Tov to the students, and I think especially to their parents, and grandparents even more so. Graduation always seems like a rather strange day, a day that's a little topsy-turvy at the university. First of all, it's an ending that we call a beginning. This whole commencement thing I'm not so comfortable with. I think it takes away from everything that the students have done over the past 4 or so years. So to me, it's something of a strangeness. Also, we can't forget that the campus looks very differently today than it does on every other day of the school year. First of all, these parents and families in fade. The flowers are all in bloom, which they never are, and miraculously they bloom on the one day when everyone's here. We come together today not for the faculty to lecture, but for the students to talk to us, Noah, Limon. And then it's that very rare occasion when the students are better dressed than the faculty, with obvious exceptions. So now it's time to get a little serious, and so for the next 10 minutes I have very modest goals. My first goal is to tell you what you've been doing for 4 years. And the second modest goal is to tell you how to live your life. So here's what we're going to do, and we have to start with a joke. Because generically, commencement addresses have to have a joke. But it's very difficult to tell jokes in this department, because we have a master joke teller in Bernie Cooperman. And so I can't compete with Bernie. So in the spirit of non-competition and in the spirit of this topsy-turviness, which as a literary critic I have to call inversion, I've selected a joke that you've all heard before, that isn't funny to begin with, and it might not have any relevance in any event. And the joke goes something like this. It's the High Holy Day services, and the rabbi comes in, and he prostrates himself in front of the bima, and he says, as he prostrates, dear Lord, I am nothing before you. Right? You've all heard this before. You know the punchline. Next, the chazan comes in, and he prostrates himself in the same way next to the rabbi. He says, Lord, I am nothing. I am nothing. I am nothing before you. And then the shamash, the deacon, the guy who opens and closes the synagogue, who cleans up, he comes in and he prostrates himself before the bima, and he also says, God, Lord, I am nothing. And the rabbi elbows the chazan and says, look who thinks he's I don't want to make any allegorical claims that the university is the altar of knowledge or the temple of anything. In fact, I want to invert the focus and look at nothingness. Because my point, I'll lay out my intention is to move from the Jewish of the joke to the Greek of philosophy in the end. And I want to say that there's a value of nothing. There's a value of nothingness. If we want to talk about what you have done, and I might get in trouble from my colleagues for saying this, but Jewish studies, it seems to me, is good for nothing. And in that, I really mean it quite positively. I think that's what's so great about it. IBM, after all, has no division of Jewish studies. It shouldn't, and we're all better off for it. And I don't mean it, on the other hand, I don't mean it in an ideal way. I don't mean to idealize nothing, that studying is about nothing and that it shouldn't have purpose. In fact, I think it is about purpose. But it's about what I'm trying to argue for is a revaluation, a true valuation of knowledge, imagination, the exploration of ideas. We've seen in the press, if you read the press, the American press over the last year, certainly in the New York Times, which I can't get away from, it seems, another type of inversion in the way that the crisis of the university, and we are in crisis, that the crisis of the university has been related to. As the universities move to a model of consumerism and value that's been placed on it by trying to put a dollar amount on what education is, there's been the kind of inverse observation that in the world's parts of the world that we've all kind of seen as having the United States as aspirational, especially the two major countries of India and China with their growing economies and growing technology, that their model of the university is moving in the direction of the liberal arts, of creativity, expansion, and imagination, just as our model of the university moves away from that toward technology, toward applied knowledge. And so there is an inversion going on, and I think we need to kind of take a look at what's happening in those parts of the world in relation to what's happening here. At our own university, I just heard about this the other day. It comes as no surprise, I think, that the head of the Center for Teaching, right, Spencer Benson, has moved to Macau to teach American systems of learning and teaching to Asia, to an Asian university. So I would like to say, and this is what I meant by studying Jewish studies, is the study is good for nothing, that I think knowledge should have no practical connection, by which I don't mean that it should have practical application. So here's the core of what I want to say. What you did here to the students, what you did here is not about what you studied, it's that you studied. And that, I think, is what you need to take with you, and that, I think, is what you need to understand about what you got within your education. And I think in this, I hate to say this, this debate about the crisis of education certainly has been taking place all over, and I think our president, President Obama, a man who I greatly admire, has done a lot of damage by talking about dollar values on education, that the university should be judged for how much you might make in your careers. I think there should be absolutely no connection between what you do here and what you do later, because I think there is every connection between the two things. So I tried this out in a class. In the Zakim University of the future, here are a couple of recipes. There will be no certificates, no professional certificates, and no professional licensing. There will be no departments or names of programs that in any way are parallel or allude to particular professions outside the university. So forget about business, forget about engineering. Education's gotta go, and journalism too. We need to educate for ideas, for expansive thought, for critical skepticism, and philosophical cynicism. What you study should have no connection to what you do, because it has every connection to everything you do. And in this, I'm happy to say there are still pockets out there that bear it out. As my father, who was a professor of medicine, would always like to tell me, you have a better chance of getting into medical school, statistically. You have a better chance of getting into medical school if you study English as an undergraduate than if you study biology. From knowing my father for so many years, I understand completely why that might be so. And as a personal anecdote, I remember as a graduate student at Berkeley in comparative literature, a topic I never studied as an undergraduate. I have 2 undergraduate degrees, one in history and one in music. I would organize softball games for the graduate students, and one day we played the music department, and there was a guy on the music department wearing a t-shirt from the Conservatory of Music where I studied, and I say, hey, what year did you finish? He finished my year. I said, hold on, it had 125 students in the class. How could I not know him? I said, what instrument did you play? He said, I wasn't in that, I studied biology. I said, no wonder, and it surprised me, but of course it shouldn't, because there I was studying literature, I had studied history and music. So I think that what you do here, I really believe, should not necessarily have any connection, because it has every connection. And in this, and I think I'm going to get in trouble with the parents for saying this, I hope you're confused. I hope you have no idea what you want to do with the rest of your lives. At your age, I don't think you should. And coming out of here, I hope that what we've done as a faculty is to help you get confused, to help you not understand. And in that sense, if I can put it in the bluntest language I know, I hope you're dumber today than you were when you entered this university 4 years ago. And in this, I have backward. This is my Greek part, and this is the second generic requirement. I told the joke, and now I need a quotation. My quotation is from Socrates, who wrote, he didn't write, reported to have said, I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance. And that's what I hope we've taught you. I hope we've taught you that the more you know, the less you know. But in that, there's an immediate second quote from Socrates that seems to invert and challenge the first one, which is, there is only one good knowledge and one evil ignorance. So in that, as you realize your own ignorance, you must also strive to distance yourselves from it. I think what we are left with is inversion, confusion, paradox, and maybe even nothingness. That's part 1. Part 2 is how to live life. This is quick, and it's a checklist. So if we take all that, what do you need to do in life? And I think I can, use the usual platitudes. You should think and all that, and you should be critical, but I've got it pared down. 1, you should read Kafka. If you've already read Kafka, you should read more. If you've read all of Kafka, which is very possible, start again. And you should read it in book form. 2, you should encounter music in an analog form. You should not just rely on digitized music. It has to, you've got an analog, I leave that open. get yourselves a turntable with some vinyl platters. It's wonderful. But and I think as I was trying to analyze myself, and I'll do that at the very end, there's something tactile about analog that I think all of my suggestions are leading to. An intellectualism combined with a tactileness of life. Number 3, for every film you go see that's in English, go see one that's not in English. Number 4, that's obvious, I don't even have to explain that. Number 4, for every reaction you have to a film, to a piece of music, to something you had for dinner, for everything that you start to think that was good or that was bad, come up with 3 reasons for that. You don't have to say them, but you should think them. You should challenge yourself to come up with them. And the 4th, and this, number 5, and I had a debate this morning at the cafe. I go to the same place every morning and have an espresso with a bunch of guys. And in this, I told them about my first 4 and my friend Larry, who's 80 years old, who's been living with someone else's heart for the last 19 years, and who survived cancer 4 years ago, said, you gotta have something in there about adaptability, about change, about newness. He says, people my age, they can't believe that I text and I have an iPhone and all that. And I said, I'm very happy to do that, Larry, but I want to invert it, the spirit of inversion. And I would say, not that you should adapt new technology, but I think you should write and send a letter every month. And by send a letter, I mean envelope, paper, and stamp. Unfortunately, the US Postal Service won't let us lick stamps anymore. If they did, I would say go lick the stamp. Use your body to do something. So those are my 5 aspects of how to live your life. I hope you've been taking notes. They look forward and they look backward. It's about adaptation, expansion, and exploration. It's about questioning, and I would say being cynical. And I would, in the end, say, never give up thinking. And there you have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sakis, for those words of inspiration. Any speech which quotes Socrates is a good speech in my book, coming from the philosophy department. And I hesitate, in the spirit of cynicism, I would say that if there are those of you who are unable to find turntables to play vinyl records, the Meyerhoff Center of Jewish Studies will be able to provide a limited number for a really special price with our logo. Okay, moving right along. The next speaker is, is one of our 2 last Morning Star scholars. The Morning Star program was initiated 5 years ago to train university teachers in Hebrew language, and the program has achieved world renown. We had a 5-year grant, and we're continuing the program. We're looking always for new funding opportunities, but the program has been so successful that we felt that we simply could not let it go. So it's now the pedagogy program at the Morning Star name, but we're going to continue it. I call upon Ms. Limor Bejayo as a representative to speak on behalf of the Morning Star program and all our graduating students. Limor.
New to me. Faculty, family, friends, and fellow graduates, I am honored, grateful, and excited that I have been given this opportunity today to address you on behalf of the Morning Star program students. Back in 2011, in my last year of BA studies, I received a widespread email about the Morning Star program. It seems to me like a great opportunity and a natural step forward to my career. I began the application process without knowing much about the program, except for the fact that I wanted to continue with my academic life, and I wanted to teach Hebrew. The Morning Star program was everything that I wished for. That's all I needed to know. Statements, writing, references, filling out forms and documents, and then some more documents, TOEFL exam, and then waiting. When I got accepted, I felt extremely grateful and thrilled about the journey to come. 2 years ago, I picked my life in Israel together with my boyfriend and came here to be a Morning Star scholar. With tons of motivation and without any suitable winter clothing, we came to Maryland. On my second day here, I went to the Jewish Studies office and was welcomed by Deborah's wide and warm smile. I felt I was in the right place and in a sense of belonging. Although I didn't have an apartment yet and I was living in a friend's place, I knew that the department will be my second home. Right from the start, Professor Manikin and the program coordinator, Dr. Foyer, ensured me that they would guide me and mentor me through this long and challenging process and journey. I'm thankful for their guidance and help. It is hard to summarize 2 years of experience in 4-minute speech, especially when you're not using your native language. We, the students, have so many stories to tell about papers we read and wrote, classes we took and taught, people we met, and the challenges we encountered. At this time, I would like to share with you a few thoughts about my experience and some thoughts about experiences to come. While growing up in Israel, the Hebrew language for me has always been a main component in my Israeli identity that has been molded by Israeli culture and Jewish tradition. I cannot think about Hebrew without connecting it to my homeland and nationality, my culture, and my tradition. Here, I was given the opportunity to explore how the Hebrew language is a significant added value in acquainting diaspora Jews with the Hebrew culture. Knowing the language enables the diaspora Jews to be acquainted with the cultural assets of the Jewish people in the past and in the present, and will allow them to contribute in the enrichment of Hebrew culture in the future. Even the act of learning in class and interact with other Hebrew students contribute to that. It was amazing to explore through research and mostly through teaching the role that Hebrew has in the life of the language learners. The Morning Star program at the University of Maryland qualified its scholars as Hebrew and Israeli cultural and linguistics missionaries on campus through scheduled classes and through informal discussion with the students. As teachers in training, we learn how to make Hebrew instruction engaging, motivating, and culturally enriched. The Morning Star program gives its scholars the possibility to gain knowledge, not only through studying, but mostly through practicing. I was privileged to learn by the best Hebrew pedagogy, Jewish studies, and education professor, and immediately practice the tools they provided me in the Hebrew classroom. Dear graduates and faculty, I wish you that you will take all the knowledge you earn here and turn it into your wisdom. I wish you to feel satisfied with every adventure you experience, but always be eager and motivated to do more. Don't find all the answers, rather find more questions to ask and more themes to inquire. Don't be afraid to make a decision. Everybody who knows me knows that the hardest thing for me is to decide. It takes me time to let go of the feeling and the notion of what if. I learned here that although the decision itself is important, it is also useful to embrace the moment before making it and to honor the fact that this is you who gets to decide. My journey at UMD is not ending today. This journey will continue to ask of me with every step I take and with every new adventure I will go to. It truly feels like my second home. Thank you.
Our next speaker is representing the undergraduate graduating class of 2014. From sports to journalism, Jewish Studies. Mr. Noah Niederhofer has made a tremendous impact on the Jewish Studies program, the College of Arts and Humanities, the university as a whole, and everybody with whom he comes into contact. I call upon Noah to give the student address for 2014.
If I can take a moment before I begin the speech, I just want to again congratulate one of our professors, Rachel Manikin. Dr. Rachel Manikin has been given tenure by the university, so if we can congratulate her. The running joke in the department is I've had the doctor's mannequin, as I will say, for 5 classes of my Jewish Studies education. So the running joke is that I've minored in mannequin. Congratulations, class of 2014. I started to get a little nervous when I thought about speaking in front of all these people, but I realized with all the Atlanta people in the crowd, I've got a hometown crowd here. It's a pretty favorable crowd, Atlanta. I'd like to talk for a little bit about what I think makes the Jewish Studies major so great and so valuable. Clearly, the size of our class is not indicative of how special and how educational, how transformational this major is. I'll tell you why the Jewish Studies major is important. Throughout history, there have been few things more valuable to the Jewish people than a Jewish education. It has ensured the cultural and religious survival of our people. It is the reason that we are standing here today. The Jewish Studies major has given us opportunities that most students in Maryland do not get to experience. I've had very small class sizes that have allowed me to create and build and cultivate relationships with my professors. They've always been there for me when I've needed help, and I know that their doors are always open. I treasure those relationships, and you would be hard-pressed to find a major where those kinds of relationships are not only possible, but commonplace, as they are in the Jewish Studies major. The Jewish people have always valued education. It has been one of the greatest assets for the Jewish people for social mobility. Even when the Jews lived under repressive regimes, they were able to help their children achieve a better future than their own because they didn't just give their children an education. They gave them a Jewish education. Today's Jewish education doesn't mean the exclusion of secular studies, but rather it means learning the importance of our heritage and our culture and our values. Gemilut Chasadim, acts of love and kindness, is one of the cornerstones of Judaism. You're all familiar with what it means to be a mensch, the idea of repairing the world. These are all Jewish values, and they are instilled and ingrained in us through a Jewish education. Despite the hardships that Jews have faced throughout the millennia, we've not only survived, we have thrived. In every generation, education has helped parents fulfill their dreams of their children having the opportunity to have a better life than they had. Hebrew school seems like an awfully long time ago for us, but I assure you that the values and lessons that you learned are still with you today. Even today, we still need a Jewish education. We all need a Jewish education. The education that we receive doesn't just last for 4 years. It lasts a lifetime. And even for those of us that aren't going on to grad school, don't worry. Your journey of learning hasn't ended. It has only begun. We don't stop learning after college. We will continue to learn our entire lives. Not only has an education, the Arts and Humanities College here at Maryland, given us tools that enable us to think critically, speak articulately, and write well, we have also become more worldwide citizens. In a world where there is so much ignorance, our Jewish education allows us to educate others and spread understanding. I think the best way to combat prejudice and intolerance and ignorance is with education. I think that our Jewish education gives us the values and tools that enable us to be the kind of young men and women that our parents always dreamed that we could be. We are leaders. We are role models. We are examples to our community and our peers. Since our professors don't ascribe to the lachrymose view of Jewish history, I will posit this. Throughout history, the Jewish people have fallen on hard times. Then they've risen. They continue to fall on hard times. And each time that we as a people have fallen, we've continued to rise to our feet. As Jews, we know adversity on a deeper level than most, not just because we deal with it throughout our lives just like everyone else. We know adversity because it is in our blood. Thousands of years of overcoming adversity have led us to become perhaps the most resilient people in the history of mankind. Throughout all of the hardships, one thing has stayed consistent no matter where in the world Jews are. Jews have continued to educate themselves and their children. They've stayed connected with the values that lead us to become the people that we are, good people. They have stayed connected with the values that allow our people to thrive and flourish in an ever-changing and ever-evolving world. Jews will always value education, and I understand its value more than ever. As I close, I also want to remind my fellow graduates of this. A Jewish education is never finished. Let us continue to learn. Let us continue to grow. Let us be vigilant to point out and attack injustices where we see them, and let us continue to perform acts of love and kindness where and when we can. Don't stop learning. Don't stop growing. And to quote the band Journey, don't stop believing. Congratulations again to the class of 2014.
Thank you, Noah. And now we move to the emotionally stirring part of the ceremony, the presentation of the graduates and the bestowing of the Ki'ilu diplomas, as we say. For Master of Arts in Jewish Studies, we'll start with Limor Bajaya. Yeah, you're starting. You can go that way. Sure. All right. Okay. Sherelle Doughty. Sherelle got her MA in Jewish Studies, focusing on Israeli literature and Israeli culture. And she also is known to many of the graduates, the undergraduates, because she's the undergraduate advisor. And she did such a fantastic job as undergraduate advisor that she's staying on next year as undergraduate advisor. She will also be teaching 2 classes, so she's now joining the faculty as well. Daria Semchenkova. Daria came all the way from Moscow to be one of our Morning Star scholars. And we had, as I said, it was a world-renowned program. Our 2 final scholars was from Israel and from Moscow. And she will be continuing in the field of Hebrew language, and we're wishing her the absolute best. Okay. She actually got a Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction, not exactly a Master of Arts in Jewish Studies, because the Morning Star scholars could choose one of those 2 tracks. Okay, we now move on to the Bachelor of Arts in Jewish Studies, Kayla Adler. Jewish Studies and Kinesiology, and we'll be doing physical therapy at GW, if I'm not mistaken, next year. That's right. Okay. I think Alyssa David and Talia Feldman are not here, So Robin Kalvariski. Robin's an NIH fellow, will be doing post-baccalaureate research in I can never pronounce that word. Epidemiology, yeah? That's an epidemiology. I didn't go to college. Noah Niederhofer. Maybe it's time to make the announcement that ESPN has started a new Jewish channel, Jewish sports channel, and I think they're recruiting. So this is going to be your future. Okay, Melanie Oppenheimer. Melanie's going into international development and will be going to South Africa. Yes? Teach English. Stephanie Singer. Stephanie's a research assistant in the psychology lab in the area. She's going to enhance her research resume and then go into some PhD program, some lucky university. Israel Schneiderman. Israel told me that he's actually going off to Alberta, Canada, as a welder, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe working on an oil rig. That could be true, and if it is, he'll make a lot of money. But we're very, very, very happy to congratulate you. And I think Noah's not here, but Michal is. So Michal's going a master's program in special ed. I think you also know that minored in mannequin. So I'm going to now call the minors in Israel in Jewish studies and religious studies. I'm not sure whether any of the minors in Israel studies are here today, but if you are, just come up. Anyway, Itai Bali. Ty's going to be taking some time off to figure out what he's going to do because even though he was a Jewish studies minor, he took Professor Zakim's speech to heart. He minored in Zakim. Okay. Ilana Sinai. Oh, cool. There we go. It's really great to know people. Ilana is actually going to be pursuing a master's at York University in English Studies. It's an English major. And Yoel Pikes. I said Yoel, it's like Joel. Joel. I got to think it myself. Okay, volunteering in Israel. Turn around. Joel. Pikes. Wow, this was one of my better years. Congratulations. So who did I miss this year? Was there anybody out there that should get one? Oh, okay. We'll give you one. Fine. Okay. My concluding remarks. I actually have two brief things to say. The first is, I'd like everybody here who is from Atlanta to rise. You may be seated. For the last, I don't know how many years, we've been proud here at the Meyerhoff Center for Atlantan Jewish Studies to serve as an important resource, both educational and financial, for college. But I really want to say, and I'm not very good, as some of you know, I'm a bit emotional. I really want to say how much, and by the way, if you're not from Atlanta, I love you too. But how much our university in general and our program has really benefited from the constant supply and stream of really wonderful human beings from Atlanta. I realize that because of certain circumstances and the withdrawal from the academic common market, there's going to be less of a financial plus in majoring in Jewish studies than there has been up until now. But we will not let this relationship lapse. We are very, very encouraged and excited about having a new phase in the Atlanta College Park relationship. And I tell you on behalf of the Meyerhoff Center and the Gildenhorn Institute, if there is anything that we can do to have this relationship grow and foster, we are very, very much interested. So, thank you, Atlanta, and everywhere else. The second thing I want to say, I want to shamelessly rip off from from the president, President Lowe, who spoke so beautifully yesterday, and he excels. I think if there was a possibility to get a doctorate in graduation or commencement, he would do it. But he said something which really hit me, and I'm rather jaded as a philosophy professor who has sat through a lot of commencements. And this actually, I think, I say this to the graduates because it really fits in very nicely with Professor Zakim's talk. Sorry, I do that in my classes too, as my students will say. Okay, you can answer. Hello? President Lowe said yesterday that we will have done our job. We will have fulfilled our responsibility as educators if you remain students all your life. And that is really I think of a piece with what I thought, at least I understood Professor Zakim to be saying. The notion of a university as a, well, for lack of a better word, a training school where one sort of like crams facts and then goes out and does things, is not a notion which is traditionally associated with the university, certainly not with the liberal arts. On the contrary, if we are able to light that spark within you, which will allow you to be a student in all your life, always looking at new things and looking at old things with a different perspective. You know, we I don't want to use the Jewish we, how inappropriate, but the Jews, once a year, and Passover time, have the ceremony of reciting the Haggadah, which is a liturgical work which is composed of various rabbinical statements that have to do with the Exodus from Egypt. And there's the line over there that says, of course, even if we are all wise people, even if we are all sages, we have an obligation to recite this text every year. And of course, it's not because the texts change, it's because we change. One thing that we have tried to do with you for the last several years in Jewish studies is to take texts many of which may have been familiar with, you may have been familiar with, to take historical periods, many of which you may not have been familiar with, and to see how the texts and how texts fit in within a historical context, and how different scholars, because of their different age in which they live, treat those texts differently and give various interpretations of those texts. You have a lifelong commitment, we hope, that we've instilled with you of continuing study that text. So I can only say with Hillel, go learn or go study and continue. And now I would like the graduates of 2014 to all rise, face the audience. So, okay, your tassel should be on stage right. Oh, sorry, on your right. That's right. And now, on the count of 3, when I say 3, I'm going to ask you to move that tassel to the left. And at which point, everybody stand up and cheer and yell, "Go Terps." 1, 2, 3. Go Terps! Okay, so first the students exit, then the faculty exits, then we all come in for bagels and lox. What can I tell you? It's all in the back. So hit the music. There you go.